What's up, guys? Compound Coalition. I've got Kevin Dixie here, and we're just going to chop it up right here and talk about whatever we want to talk about. Enough of that. All right, what's up?
Oh, what's going on with you, man?
Tell me about NOC.
Oh, NOC's doing well. We're pushing forward, trying to keep the American people educated, not only just with firearms, but also their critical thinking abilities. We're trying to foster that and bring that back. Doing good, man. I know we'll get into it, but I'm blessed to have the property now, a place to do your thing. And I mean, you've been somebody that's been kind of spearheading that for years now, having your own facility, developing it.
I think James did, man.
Yeah.
I just came here and fell into it for sure, man. Yeah. You got a great piece of property there. You got some good people there. Like, I've seen the people involved and the people that are kind of coming in to be part of the community and everything. Like, you got big plans, man.
Yeah, I'm trying to get it to where, sometimes property is, we know it's precious, right? Yeah, we're not making any more of that. And so what I wanted to do with the community outreach side of the land, because there's the firearms training side of the land, obviously, but with the community outreach side, I don't know everything, man. I don't know everything about planting gardens, but that's the stuff we're going to be doing: gardening, farming, animals. Teaching people how to build chicken coops and greenhouses, and we're also going to have business classes, financial literacy, reading comprehension, all these things. Some of those things I'm pretty good at. Some of those things I don't know anything about. I want to learn, just like I want the community, the kids, to come out and learn. So I'm just big with partnering with people that already do it. You have a skill, I have the space. So as long as you have the same intent and the same heart, then I want to partner with you to make sure that we can deliver the services to the people. It doesn't matter if John has the skill set. If John needs the space, I got the space. Right? Let's work together. We can really impact lives. So that's why I think I'm blessed to have a pretty good community of people coming together.
Yeah, it looks like you do. And the financial guy usually doesn't know how to make the chicken coop.
Exactly.
So you bring them together, man, and the dude who's there teaching, he doesn't know what he doesn't know, right? And then he sees it, gets infected with it, and learns it, and then goes on and, teaches, a little bit of that, brings other people in. It's just like fishing, man. You don't know what kind of fish you're going to catch once you throw it out there. Sometimes you toss them back, but sometimes you catch that fish, man, and it's valuable, right? They just come in. And sometimes you get people that just know a lot of shit. And, like, you might not know garden, but Grandma knew gardening, right? We call it prepping. Grandma called it Tuesday. You just find those people. And that's kind of been the kick lately, right? How do we fix, like, you hear Tim Pool and all these dudes, the culture war. How do we fix that? Well, we warehouse our elderly folks, right? They're of no value any longer to most people. Whereas if you bring them back, they have all that knowledge, all that lost knowledge, right? And they can still teach that. History is his story, right? A man can still tell his story even when he can't, do hard physical labor. He still has that knowledge, man. They're still there. So if we can bring our children onto a property, right? And we raise our children, and then we assist raising our children's children, our grandkids. And if we can keep our elderly folks on the property, they are of value also, so that once we have our kids and then we are able to go and travel and, do other classes and other things, we still have our folks there. So it's having those multi-generational people, and they don't necessarily have to be like blood relatives, right? They're just, right. Everybody has, value, and we just bring those people together. And when you do what you truly believe in your heart's the right thing, then the right people show up. You get the right people.
Absolutely. Yeah, I agree with you, especially with the elderly being disposable. To your point, all that knowledge, that wealth of knowledge, even if grandma limbs don't move like they used to.
Yep.
Even if those hips don't rotate like they used to, that brain is still firing.
Yeah.
And what can you get? And, get them out there and get the lessons. And I think if you have those individuals more involved in what you got going on, and you see, guys our age, and you see, our children out there interacting, that's going to help refoster that respect aspect as well, right? Because you look at the way kids in general treat elderly people now, they treat them like they're varmints. They treat them like they're in a way, old crusty things, but these are literally walking libraries. These are people that are...
That's it, exactly. They are libraries. And even as we say libraries, like libraries don't even exist anymore, right? It's right. Literally a digital book burning. Go on Google and look up some shit that you looked up 10 years ago. It says different stuff now. Like They are changing history.
Absolutely.
They used to have to come collect the books and burn them in a pile. Now they just remove them.
And distract you.
Yep.
Hey, look over here. Don't look
That's
over
right.
there. Now burn it.
Yeah. For real, man.
Yeah, man.
Yeah. Happening all over the world.
Absolutely. We see it all the time. I tell people, when I talk about a lot of American history, right? Now, I tell people all the time, the problem with the American populace and thought process sometimes is if America did it, there's a valid reason. But anything somebody does to America, they're a villain for life, right?
Right.
So I can talk, like, for example, if we talk about, and I'm just using this not because of current times necessarily, but it's an example I use all the time. I go tell Americans, like, hey, we're going to have a conversation about, history in America, not to make John feel bad or Steve feel bad, just like we're just going to have a factual conversation about things and maybe how they affect today. And they'll go, oh, if I say something about slavery, chattel slavery or something like that, 1619 project, summer 1919, whatever, they'll go, oh, just get over it. I'm like, well, why don't you just get over 1776 then? Because America doesn't like owning what it did that's bad. And then when you look at something that happened overseas, for example, if I say, hey, let's talk about, Hitler, then everybody's screaming like, yeah, that guy sucks. And I don't think any of us disagree with that. And we go, yeah, that guy sucks. And then it'll be a blast fest against, and it's valid, against Hitler. But it's easy to talk about what someone else did that's horrible to a group of people.
Right.
But then when you talk about what Americans did that's horrible to a group of people, then all of a sudden it's like, oh, get over it. Then we talk about Pearl Harbor, it's never forget. Then I talk about Tulsa, Oklahoma, it's like, did it even happen? So America has a bad problem with that.
I like the Tulsa, Oklahoma thing. Like, I didn't know it until you brought it up, right? Where was the first bomb dropped on U.S. citizens?
U.S. citizens, Tulsa, Oklahoma, 1921.
Briefly tell what happened with that.
So there was a town called, so you got Tulsa, you got the city, right? And then there was an area of the city called Greenwood. It was also called Little Africa because of the black population there. That was a disparaging way to say it, but it is what it is.
Is Black Wall Street there?
Black Wall Street was there. It is no longer there. Okay. And it was called Black Wall Street because, and there were a lot of these settlements around the country. This is just one that really sparked some flames. And so Black Wall Street was essentially, we dealt with segregation on a big level. So, hey, go over there. That is it. Great. So they did and built hospitals, theaters, diners, retail spaces. We created lawyers, doctors, and everything was self-contained.
Own banking,
everything. So everything over there, it took $1, I believe. Don't quote me on this, but I believe it took for $1 to escape that community. It took an average of 6 months for $1 to escape. Right. And so what happened, that community was living and thriving. Now it's a community. It's going to have its crime and its problems like every other community. However, it was doing pretty well. Now, what happened is there's a guy named Dick Roland. Now he was a shoe shiner. And you actually made pretty good money. When I actually went into the research of shoe shining back in the day,
I watched a bunch of stuff on Black Wall Street after I heard you talk about it. I watched a bunch of videos on YouTube. I think I watched everything that was on YouTube.
Good. I like that. So much information out there.
There is. And you don't ever hear that history. And I didn't look at it as they bombed black folks. They bombed U.S. citizens, right? They bombed. Yeah. We're next.
Of course.
We're next. They've burnt down plenty of white folks.
Yeah, but see, the problem is when people don't have the mindset of that and they don't ask the questions like you do, what goes, if you won't acknowledge what they did was bad, you're right. You are next. Just like when gun control, if we talk about the history of gun control, you let that shit slide and guess what? Now it affected the entire country, right? It was a cancer that you didn't want to kill. Nobody wanted to address it. And all of a sudden it attacks the entire country. But to Dick Roland, so he was a shoe shiner. Long story short, he had to use the restroom. Restroom apparently was not on the same floor as where he was working, which was the ground level. Back then we had elevator operators. There was a young Caucasian woman who was the elevator operator. Dick Roland was entering the elevator to come back down. He had went upstairs, did his thing because black people weren't really allowed to ride the elevators. But he was like, I need to get back downstairs. So he walked up and said, I'm going to catch the elevator back down to use the restroom. And he stepped in and tripped and made physical contact with her. So it's like me falling into you, right? And she screamed as she was getting sexually assaulted. That was the scream. And so Dick Roland ran. The townspeople caught him. The sheriff got him. They got him into the jail. And a group of black men showed up and said, okay, tell you what. The mob is not going to take him out of the jail because that was a thing. The mob comes to the jail, take the guy out the jail, and they hang him. That was a known thing, right? So we're not going to lynch him. If there is something that happened, we're going to go through the legal process. And so we're going to stand guard here at this jail to help out the sheriff who kind of did need some help. We're going to stand here and help him out. Well, the crowd shows up because the rumor were we're going to drag him out. We're going to hang him. So the crowd shows up. The black guys are standing out there, kind of standing guard. And they look and some words are going back and forth, and it had already been kind of a pressure building in there, if you will. So one gentleman, we don't know this guy's name, walked up and he said to one of the black guys that was carrying a handgun, because see, then the way that the rules worked and kind of how gun control worked in that area, you could have a long gun. You weren't really allowed to have a pistol unless you jumped through a lot of hurdles and hoops, and black people really didn't have them. But in Black Wall Street, there was a little bit more money. They could pay for the permit process. They could grease the right pockets, right? And so he walked up to him and said, hey, nigger, what are you doing with that gun? And he's talking about the handgun. And he went to go take it from him. And a struggle ensued. To this day, nobody really knows whose finger got into that trigger guard and who pressed the shot, because they were fighting over the handgun. And from there, the slaughter ensued. So you had all the white population just really come down, go through Black Wall Street, and I mean, slaughter everybody. Within 24 hours, they eradicated the entire part of the city. And they went house to house. They burned homes. As people were running out of houses, they would catch them, throw them back in the burning house, stand there and laugh, execute them. You can see old pictures of, I forget what they called the trucks back then, but the trucks with the side cages on them, like the wood panels on the side of the trucks. But you could see them bodies, just that they're taking them to mass grave and dumping them off. There are plenty of stories, if you read the books, where people were hiding. They had to listen to their family members get killed, rape, murder. There was a gentleman by the name of O.B. Mann who actually led the resistance. So O.B. Mann was a veteran, and O.B. Mann was not a punk. He was the guy in your neighborhood that you want. So O.B. Mann had minimum resources, but he was trained with firearms. He kind of got everybody up. He knew how to stage. He knew how to fight back, but it was only so much they could do. So they fought back for a while until it was useless. The National Guard came in and they said, hey, all right, enough is enough. But this is where it got interesting. They come in and say, sure, enough is enough. It's like me watching you pound a guy's face in, and I'm like, hey, John, stop. But I wait 5 minutes to really go stop you, right? And so the state police, you can see state police emblems on the side of the prop planes where they were dropping kerosene bombs, on Tulsa. So that's where the bomb, right? It wasn't a military bomb, but it was a bomb that they dropped to burn people out of these homes. And then they also opened fire. This is another thing. They also opened fire into the homes and the windows of the homes to make the residents run out. When the residents ran out, they would murder them. So it was crazy for everything that happened there. And then eventually they called a ceasefire. And at the end of that, here was the crazy part about the ceasefire. So they've eradicated this community, just eradicated them. Two crazy things. One, all the white people were told temporarily give your guns up, and they had to go home. Firearms were returned. All the black people were put into an internment camp. Every last single one of them were put into an internment camp. And you know the crazy part? The only way that they could leave the camp is to get a work slip, a permission slip from a white guy saying they're coming to work for me. That's how they could leave the camp. So imagine being slaughtered, being killed for no reason. And then all of a sudden, the people that's been screwing you over and messing you up get to go home, get their guns back, and then I put you in a damn camp and tell you the only way you get to leave is one of them same motherfuckers come and get you and say you get to go work for them for the day. So that was the first crazy thing. The second crazy thing is how it all started. The girl and the guy fell in love. She knew that he didn't mean to assault her, so he moved out west. So he actually lived through the catastrophe. He went out west. They had love letters going back and forth for years. She fell madly in love with him.
Wow.
Yeah, crazy.
What year was that?
1921.
21.
Yep.
Crazy shit, man.
Yeah, man. And it was nicknamed America's Black Eye. So that's why when people say I never knew, I'm like, it was designed that way. Like you weren't supposed to.
Wasn't some of the first gun control to keep the Black Panthers?
First modern. So interesting standpoint, man. When people talk about gun control, here's a fun fact about gun control. It actually predates the establishment of the United States in the land we now know to be North America. So that started off with black slave codes, where it was saying, then I'll jump right into the Panthers. When a slave code would say something like this, there was one that was used down in the Louisiana area that stated that if any slave or black was caught with anything that could be used as a weapon, in the law, it used the example of a cane.
Okay.
Then they could be shot and killed and murdered on sight by any white man. The only responsibility the white man would have was to tell the owner that they were killed. You were only allowed to have something that could be used as a weapon under the guise of your master. So that's why you could have saws and you could have axes, but You were on the land, you were working on the land, you had an overseer. Outside of that, you were not allowed to have anything that could be used as a weapon. So that's truly the first kind of weapon and gun control we had, and that was back in 1619, 1620.
Wow.
Right. And so now when you get to where we have like more modern government, if you will, so we can fast forward and run all the way up to the Mulford Act. So you're looking at Bobby Seale and a bunch of Black Panthers out in California were going to the state capitol to protest. I mean, I thought that was an American thing we get to do, right? And he went to the state capitol to protest. They were armed, but they weren't necessarily there to talk about guns. They were just armed as they talk about the other issues. And the Republican guy known as Ronald Reagan was the governor at the time. He didn't like that. And so he absolutely told Milford to go ahead and write and craft up an act. Who Milford, I believe, was an assemblyman technically, but I could be corrected on that. And write up that act to make sure that we get some gun control passed. And so when the gun control got passed, and we see it happening today, this is what I mean by when you let something become cancerous and you don't address it, it's going to get you eventually. So the first thing was to write the act. Well, while that was happening simultaneously to make sure we have legal right to take the guns away from them, then we start getting in the media and we start attacking their image for the American populace doesn't support you, right? We want them to overlook all the tyrannical stuff we're about to do as we're going to dismantle you in the media. So the Black Panthers were a terrorist organization. They were all these things. So Americans looked at it like, yes, please take the guns from them, not knowing they're going to take the guns from everybody. So that's what really started it. And we look at it today, take a white militia. What happens with a white militia? They're just living out on the land, doing their thing, not bothering anybody. Yeah, they might have some opinions about the government and say, yeah, you guys need to fix this crap. And it's the same thing, right? So now they'll use, like in Michigan, they use white militias as an example of why we should have more gun control, right? And they always take an extremist because I don't care where we go. We can always find an extremist in any group of people, right? They take them, highlight them, dismantle the reputation of the rest. And next thing you know, the public is like, scared and oh my God, get rid of them. So Ronald Reagan did that, and then he also got rid of machine guns, and people still praise him as the best Republican president we've ever had. It's kind of funny.
Yeah, now everything's white supremacist. It's even the blackface of white supremacy now. It's pretty wild.
Yeah, it's
they're very good at division.
You know, because I don't. But you know what? Not that you're wrong, man. Here's what I get confused about. When do the American people own that? Right? Like, I can sit and have a conversation with you. It does not mean that I am going to backtrack or back down from anything I believe about the Black community. I lived it. I breathe it. I know the history. Damn it, I'm going to stand for it. And I'm going to let anybody tell me, oh, you can't stand for Black people. Nope. It's no different than if I go to Honduras and they tell me you can't talk positive about America. No, I'll chin check America, but I'm still an American. So anywhere I go in this country, outside of this country, I am going to represent for the United States of America because I'm American. And we have a hard time with that balance. And what gets me is a lot of people understand that when you combine government, corporations, and media, division is easy. And we see it now. We call it out now. We say that now. And then Americans still choose to be divided. They still choose not to do the thing that will fix it all.
What's the thing that fixes it all?
Right here.
Okay.
This right here. If you sit down with someone and you have a conversation, even if you have to set rules, like, hey, man, let's not raise our voices, but let's have the tough conversations. One of the reasons that I've been successful in having conversations that normally people consider to be tough is the fact that I will sit. When I travel and train people, trust me, they've watched something I've said. They're like, I really want to ask him about that, or I really want to challenge him about that. It has nothing to do with guns. It has something to do with culture. They'll want to ask me, and I'll answer. And I answer with reservation. I'm very calm, and I have rules. Like, I'm going to give you an answer. I expect for you to receive that answer just like I received your question. And if we get to more of this, more dialogue and actually understanding and listening to people's perspectives, then we get further. So when somebody hears me talk about Black issues, in order to have bias confirmation, the first thing they do is start thinking BLM. They start thinking a corporate entity of BLM, and they forgot 500-600 damn times I've said, screw BLM, the corporation. The sentiment is valid. The corporate machine is irrelevant. They're a machine, and they're funded by anti-gun Marxists. It just is what it is, right? So no, but if you are hearing what I say about the Black community through your confirmation bias of BLM, then all you do is start screaming. I'm like, you didn't even hear me say that we are both the same on that. I don't like them either. Right. So now can you at least listen to the issues? People don't. It'd be the same thing whenever I hear a white guy that's talking about making sure that they keep the white population with babies. They want to keep their babies pure. When the first time I heard that conversation, I just sat and listened. Everybody, when I heard about it, everybody was like, "Oh, look at this new racist thing coming out," blah, blah, blah. And I just sat and I listened. I'm like, well, I'm not saying whether it's racist or not, because maybe it depends on the tone that is being delivered from the person it's being delivered from. That does play a part. But at the same time, if we go back to Grandma's Kitchen, every community been having that conversation for 40 years. You get what I'm saying? So getting past that nuance and understanding, if you say something and you mean it with ill intent, then okay, it can be received that way. But if you're just having a conversation about preservation of your community, it could be your local community, it could be the gun community, it could be, the self-preservation community or whatever. We just have to be more apt to listening to people and stop. And I want everybody to hear this. Please stop doing this. Stop having conversations with people, and the only way that you want to validate them is when they conform to you. And that's what happens in America a lot. That's why we're easily divided. You believe that somebody has 100% just conform to you, right? Like, just conform, just switch over. I'm like, no, when you demand conformity, you steal my individuality, right? You shouldn't demand conformity. Come over to me, be on my side, think the way I think, right? And that's what people do. And then what you do is you go grab somebody and say, well, look at this guy. You should be more like him. I'll use black people for an easy example. You go get some dude that ain't been from the hood, that don't know what he's talking about. He says everything that your favorite white guy says on TV, but because he's black, then all of a sudden it makes it valid, and he is the messenger of
black
truth.
Friend.
Yeah, it's my black friend. He says everything. And I said, man, ain't y'all been saying the same thing with the white liberals? I'll go get a white liberal, right, that says everything that you would think a black dude would say, right? Oh no, these poor people, they can't read, they can't write. We're going to help them. Okay, we're going to do all these nice things for them, and I'm their friend, and they need us. And then when I go get him and have him speak for me, you'd be like, why you go get this dude? He's a puppet. Then I need y'all to stop going to find your favorite black dude that's saying all the stuff that y'all want to hear to make you feel comfortable. Because then when you run in my way, like I've done dozens of times, all right, okay, homeboy, let's get on a platform and have this conversation, and let's have it real. Because you can't just come and say, I'm gonna say this and run away. No, come have the conversation, come have a balanced conversation. And they never own it, because I'm going here to tell you, a lot of people in mainstream America that think they aren't mainstream America still have a mainstream influence, and they are not capable of critical thinking. So as soon as they get somebody to confirm their bias, they ride with that individual, use that individual as a beacon of light, because that individual makes them feel right. And the whole time, the reason why your country isn't coming together, because you're doing small shit like that, and you are actually the cancer to America. America can't get fixed, and they can't resolve their issues if we're hiding behind things that make us feel good, if we're not having the tough conversations. And by all means, start owning the fact that America's done some fucked up shit. Because show me a country that hasn't. And it doesn't mean now, and this is the last thing, and I'll get off my rant here. It does not mean America is meant to be perfect. It does not mean the people in America are perfect. But I'm a big believer in, just like we raise our kids, hey, own your shit, right? You do something, own it. That's the only way dad can help you fix it, right? If you own it. You keep lying to me, I'm not going to be able to get to the root of the cause and help you out. And when people say things like this is why I tell them this is the challenge to America, and maybe we can get somewhere further. You say something about slavery, and then Americans go, well, every country in the world has slavery. We were supposed to be the difference. We were supposed to be the beacon. We were supposed to be the land of the free, hence freedom, opposite of slavery. So stop saying that, because now you're saying that we are the world's shining beacon. But we just do what the world does. Then are you the world's shining beacon, or you just happen to be a rich ass kid that gets to do what the hell that they want to do and you suffer no consequences, right? So stop saying that. Own it. Hey, yeah. Okay, that got jacked up. Now we're going to talk about that history, just like we talk about Mao, just like we talk about Stalin. But see, if I sit up here and I talk about Hitler, or I talk about Stalin, and pick another corrupt world leader forever, nobody will care. The moment I say something about America, then all of a sudden it's a problem, right? So we got to start owning that and doing better with that. And that's the way we come to a resolution to say, okay, what things still exist that affected that back then, and let's not keep changing history. Like you Google something 10 years ago and it's different now. Let's not do that. Like Ron DeSantis is pulling right now in the state of Florida. Like that kind of stuff is not cool.
What's he doing?
So Ron DeSantis, he's blaming his school board of education on a state level. And so what they've done, they had, and I want people to make sure they don't get the two conflated. They submitted critical race theory, some kind of critical race theory agenda to them. In the critical race theory agenda, they also intertwined something dealing with the LGBTQ community. I don't remember exactly what it was, but it was a lot of intertwining there. And they were concerned, and they focused on that. Like, we can't even focus on teaching this because you've wrapped up and intertwined some of this sexual things toward children, and we're not for it, right? So therefore, we're scrapping the whole thing. Okay. I mean, I'm like, well, I can't really blame them, right? Because if you're trying to give me one thing and you're twisting in whatever the other thing is, I can't focus. Which one am I supposed to focus on, right? So I got that. I kind of understood that one because it just wasn't clear about what exactly he was going to be supporting to a degree. All right, I get that. But then AP Studies, African American Studies, is a totally different thing. It's totally separate. And on the collegiate level and in high school, he is saying that they don't need to teach African American studies. One of the things, and what his school board wrote up, it said that because it taught blacks trades. So why are we teaching it as a bad thing? I can't make that up. It said it taught them skills, so why are we teaching it as a bad thing?
He's saying during slavery?
Yeah, you learn skills and trades, so why is it a bad thing? And his school board seemed to have wrote that. One of the 6 seemed to have written that, but he backed it up. He's like, he said, I stand behind my scholars, right? And it taught slaves trades. So why is it a bad thing? Because we don't want little white children running around feeling like that they did it. Well, they didn't. And like I like to tell people all the time, look, man, we can all be friends, and I'm cool with being friends with all kind of people from all different walks of life. If I thought that you were trying to hit me with a whip, I would shoot you in the face. Let's not get it twisted. We are having a historical conversation about things. If I thought you were trying to put me in a cage that I didn't need to be in, if I thought you were trying to get me to pick anything for you, if I thought that you were going to be raping my wife, if I thought you were going to be doing those things, you're going to have to bury me in the ground because I'm going to annihilate you and everybody in your bloodline. That's how serious that is. Now, we can still have a conversation of mature men about history. Let's talk about history. But if I was to stand up and say, and back to Ron DeSantis, if I was to stand up and say, okay, hey guys, in response to that, okay, I'm going to say this. How would you feel if I said the Jews should stop complaining about the Holocaust? It taught them perseverance. It taught them how to work with little. It taught them everything about teamwork, right? Now, how would that go over? Not very well, right? And I would never say something like that. But why is it that we got a governor that's comfortable with erasing history and not teaching it? Because he wants to make sure the minds of little white kids aren't tainted. Well, that's up to their parents. And nobody says when you teach it like you did it. Like, I would disagree with that. I don't want anybody looking at a kid that happens to be white and look at them and say, yeah, look what happened in history and it's your fault. I would disagree with that. And I'm black. No, don't do that. We are just talking factual history. Now, if that happens to be great-great-granddad, then maybe that kid needs to just own that great-great-granddad did it, but he still didn't do it, right? We can have that balanced approach. So I think a lot of individuals missed it even when it's happening live because we all want to see things through our lens, what makes us comfortable, where we're good at, and we forget. So if he can do it, if a governor can stand up right now and do it with black people, what's next? What's going to be the next thing to come out the books? What's going to be the next thing that school board says we don't need to teach? Is it politics? Is that something that we don't need to teach anymore? Should we take out what that process is? Matter of fact, ask most kids now what the 3 levels of government are.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So what else are we going to now start excluding from books? So my bad on the rant, John, but you got me going. So
no, it's good, man.
That's how I feel about that stuff, man. I want Americans to get along. I want people to be able to talk, and I want people to be able to have the harsh conversation and get off the internet trying to have it. You know what I mean? Like, find somebody that you can, I mean, you're going to have some of them on the internet. It is a tool that we can use, absolutely. But when you're first broaching the conversation, either join a live, that's why I like live videos, because you can kind of really chop it up. Or, find somebody that you disagree with fundamentally and go get educated. Because most of the time, truly, it's just ignorance. You just don't know what you don't know. I keep telling people, man, the beautiful thing about America, and let me make this very clear too, for anybody gets this anti-American, you couldn't pay me to move somewhere else.
Where would you go?
I love this country. I love What it's afford. I'm a kid from the slums, from nothing, from the gutter. And I don't say that because it sounds cool in a rap song. You know what I mean? Like, I come from nothing. And here we are talking about the fact that I own 40 acres of land now, and I'm starting in community projects, right? So that doesn't happen probably in India. You get what I'm saying? Like, that probably does not happen in Morocco. So I'm thankful for the things that have been afforded to me in the United States of America, and I will never denounce my citizenship. You got me messed up. I'm here, right? And then I even look at it from the standpoint that, by force or not, there were individuals that are my ancestors that stayed and they fought. That's why I tell people too, black people fought in every single war in this country for this country. I ain't going nowhere. It's my land just as much as anybody else's, right? The only person I would kind of like, back up to as a Native American, because having that conversation is a whole different thing. But when we start dealing with present context, this is my country as much as anything else. So for anybody out there that thinks that because I challenge America, because I push back, because, I have things in history that I want to be taught, and I want to see my fellow man actually talk to each other and break through those things. And if your response to me is I'm anti-American, my response to you is fuck you. Because my thing is, America does not prosper and push forward if the individuals in America are weak-minded, deluded, thought processing individuals. If we would have got here and if everybody would have just stayed in their little echo chambers and never branched out, then we wouldn't be the superpower we are today. So that being said, you can love America, but think about it like this. If you're raising someone, if you are involved in their development, what happens if you let them get away with all the bullshit? Mm-hmm. Right? If you just let them get away with all the bullshit, I would say that you truly don't love that person that you're raising or that you're caring for, because you're just letting them go with bullshit, and that's going to become hazardous to their future, right? And so when I start looking at different people around the country that I'm privileged to talk to, I get on the gun range with them. We shooting and training guns, and I even tell them then, I said, y'all don't understand how beautiful this is to me when I stand in front of 10, 12 people, all of them white. There was a time in this country I couldn't even own a gun. Now I'm the one doing the teaching. Are you crazy? That means something to me. And it also means a lot to the individuals that show up, right? That want to have a conversation, that whether it's technically about guns or they want to talk about America, they want to talk about critical thinking, brain functions, whatever. Like, that's where the real work is happening, brother. That real work is happening when it's two men with a cigar and a sip of bourbon, and they're sitting down, and you can say something to me and I'm not ready to jump and choke you. Because we can have the conversation and the dialogue. Now imagine if we can have that happen here, and then all of a sudden it spreads, and you have 6,000 of these conversations weekly happen, 12,000 of these conversations weekly happen. That's when we can get ready to fix our country. Right now, I can't even get people to start looking. You want to talk about color? The one thing that's worse than color in this country is politics. I can't even get people to stop talking red and blue when it comes to aligning issues. So I think it starts, back to the original question, it starts with this right here. Although me and you have done this for years, but this is where it starts. If people can start doing that, get off your couch, go across the highway, man, to talk to that dude, like, hey man, I'll take you out to lunch, but you have a perspective that I would like to know more. Lunch on me. I just want to learn more about this perspective, and don't be so defensive. They're ready to just hear him out. Listen to him. Like you said, you heard about Tulsa? You went and researched it. Because if I was talking about some BS, you would have to call me out on it. You'd be like, hey man, I couldn't find no evidence or nothing on this thing you were talking about, right? But imagine if everybody took that same attitude you took and they said, I'll listen to you. Let me go research it. And if you come back like, oh shit, well now maybe you understand more of my perspective.
Well, I'd never heard that. So what else have I not heard,
Red Summer of 1919 would be a cool one to look up. That's an interesting. Rosewood, 1923 is another interesting one. Fun fact, Florida was the first state in the Union, unless somebody finds some small other example. Florida was the first state in the Union that actually paid a form of reparations back to black people because they couldn't protect them, and they admitted to it. They paid it in 1993. They finally paid it from what happened in 1923. And so in Rosewood, Florida, a lot of gun control started happening as blacks, because you go through slavery being illegal in the country, right? And so as that happens, as we all did, we got here and we start expanding west, right? And so as slaves started being free, some people went west because you still had the big gold rush and things like that. So they went there, but a lot of people wanted to start going back south. Right, they wanted to go south. So Florida started getting a lot of black folks showing up, and so Florida actually started passing gun laws to say that people can have guns. And as that migration started happening, for example, Tennessee, I want to say 1865, Tennessee ratified its state constitution that read essentially just like the U.S. Constitution that all men have the right to keep and bear arms, so all white men have the right to keep and bear arms. They changed it. And Florida also started to do the same thing. They started to give gun control. So Rosewood was a small town. It was a very small town, and the people there were next to Sumter. Or is it Sumner? Yes, Sumter. Sumter, Florida was the neighboring town. And that town was all white people, right? So you had all black town, all white town sitting right, and they neighbored each other. And so for a while it was peaceful. You know, it was for that time, it was relatively peaceful. And what happened is there was a gentleman that had escaped from prison. And the rumor was he was hiding in that town anyway. It was kind of like a rumor going around. He might be around here. He might be, because there was a train. The train wasn't far from the town. But what really sparked it off is that a woman was married and her husband went to work, and she had her little boo thing come over, right? And so she had her side guy come over, and things got a little rough. You know, she wanted more, something out of a relationship from him. He was a white guy, and he roughed her up, and he left. And how are you going to explain to your husband how you got all marked up, how you got it bruised up? It's 1923. What do you say? A black guy raped me, right? Even though she was sleeping with a white guy. A black guy raped me. So the husband being pissed, they formed a posse, and they went door to door looking for this escaped guy, right? Because they're figuring, oh, this must be the same guy. But then they just start using that as an excuse to kill everybody. And they just start killing everybody. They start burning them out of their homes. They start shooting them. So a lot of people, even some white shop owners, and I forget the gentleman's name, but they kind of did a mini underground railroad and started running all the women and children to the train, and just getting them on the train so they can get out of there. But they went through Rosewood and slaughtered their community and burned their community to the ground, and then had the nerve not to give them their damn land back. So I physically have went to Rosewood. It's about 45, 50 minutes west of Jacksonville, and I physically went out there. And the state said, oh, they put up this big memorial for them and things like that to really honor that town. And I promise you, I had to ride by that memorial 15 times before I seen it. It's a sign half of that size with a few kind words on it and a couple of like dead flowers on around. That's it. That's all the remembrance of those people. So Florida in 1993 or 1994 finally paid some kind of restitution, if you will, to the families and admitted that we failed to protect them because even law enforcement was in on it. The sheriff didn't want to be in on it necessarily, but he had to. Otherwise, he might have been a victim of the same energy. But yeah, even the cops, the deputies joined in, right? And this is a town that at the same time when that happened, there was a KKK meeting in Gainesville, which is also not far. And they actually got on the phone with the KKK guys, and they were the ones that came and helped them. Really? Like literally a KKK rally. They called the KKK and had the KKK come to Rosewood and help wipe that community off the map. Yeah, it's the history that America wants to constantly hide. And then when you start talking about it, it's like, oh, like, get over it. Imagine somebody from, I don't know, Costa Rica coming up here and listen to us, educate them about Pearl Harbor, and they tap you and say, hey, get over that. Dude, you're not safe doing that in America, So that's what I mean by America is quick to denounce or look at you and say, oh, shut up, when it's something that they're guilty for. But as soon as it's something that somebody else did that we can say, oh, my God, that's horrible. We're like, yeah, let's make them public enemy number one. But America herself never wants to just own what she's done wrong. And I hate to tell people, like the last survivor of Tulsa just passed away last week. So when you start talking about like, oh, was it?
Did you ever meet any of those people?
No. Man, I tried so much. As they start getting older, and now you knew the names from reading the books and things like that. It was always part of it's my fault. It's like I want to travel, I want to meet them, and as I would get closer to doing it, it's always something else came up, and then you take advantage. Oh, John will be there next week. So that's my fault because I just took advantage of the fact they will be there and got busy doing other things. And then by the time, because I wanted to donate one of the truth guns to the families. And by the time I got ready to actually coordinate the logistics and everything, they had started, old age caught up with them. And then the gentleman, I honestly didn't know he was living. I thought the last survivor died died last year or the year before last, who I thought was a woman. And she was known to be the last survivor. And I had no idea about this gentleman. He actually wound up being the true last survivor, and he passed away a week ago. Had I known about him, I would have got up off my ass last year and made sure that I met him.
Have you ever met a Klansman?
Once in Missouri. It's funny.
Did you seek him out, or did you know, or how did that come to be?
I ran into him at a gas station. He was acting like a bitch.
And he's just like,
yeah. You know, to be honest with you, I was in a gas station in southeast Missouri. Yeah, no, southwest Missouri. And I was at a gas station, and I've met kids before that were racist, but not a Klansman, right? So it's the difference. I think these are just dumbass kids, but not like I go out with a hoodie on type dude. And they were putting pamphlets or leaflets on cars, right? And I don't think they knew that it was a black dude that was in that car. They were literally just walking. And what I saw was a van and dudes putting leaflets on cars. I didn't think none of it. Come get, we clean carpet type shit. That's what I thought it was going to be. And I get up and I pick the leaflet up on my car, and I'm about to just put it in a dumpster. And I looked at it, and it was like, America is slowly dying. And it said the niggers, the wetbacks, and blah 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 are taking all our land and this and that, and we got to do something about it. Meet us at this location. We will rise again. So they're still passing out leaflets in the parking lot, putting them on cars. I want to talk to you now. So I went to go have a conversation with them. Hey, just explain this to me. I didn't walk over like, yeah. I just, hey man, hey, what's up? What's going on? Oh, nothing. Now this dude I'm probably late 20s. I'm pushing 30. This dude had to be 40, 45 years old. Like, he was a grown ass man. And I'm like, hey, I just want to have a conversation with you about this. You know, what's explained to me what he's steadily backing up. He's steadily backing up. He's just steadily backing up. And then he just, takes a little trot. He didn't run. I'm not going to say he ran. He takes a little trot to his van, and him and his three buddies on the inside. And I'm looking at all of them like, nobody's going to explain this to me. Nobody want to talk to me? And they get in the van and leave. So I tell people all the time, man, first of all, I'm going to be honest with you guys, man. I feel sorry. I mean, for people that are truly racist, like to the core, I feel sorry for them. How much of an idiot you have to be. A lot of them are and I do acknowledge it. Some people are brought up in environments that are just filled with stupidity, right? I'm not saying that that's going to excuse your actions, but even with him, it would have been my first opportunity to truly sit down or stand up and have a conversation with somebody with that mindset that really was in it, not just, saying dumb stuff, that was really in it. But he backed up. And I realized that a lot of times people can't stand up when somebody confronts them on their bullshit, right? And he couldn't. So to me, if you are, if the Klansmen are still running around, there are a couple of the subset groups. We see them all the time that run around. They're not as powerful, obviously, as they used to be. But they run around and they talk their noise and they scream their things. We saw it in Charlottesville. They came out the woodworks. I just shared something recently. It might have been in California where it was people flat out they let you be like Nazis, like the whole thing, kill Jews, kill blacks, like the whole thing. I recently shared some about them about a few months ago. So I know that there are still people out there with that mentality. I really, truly do feel sorry for them. But like I tell everybody, man, there's three type of races. Two of them I'm worried about. One of them I'm not. I'm not worried about the racist, sitting somewhere, with Cheeto orange fingers, saying silly shit.
The internet Klansman.
The internet dude. I'm just not worried about that guy, man. I give him, he's a walking meme. I give him no attention. Then there are the people that have power over systems and finance. I worry about them, right? You got power over system and finance. You can absolutely have a negative effect on people. So I am concerned. And the antidote to that is to play the system and understand the game, to be educated, because you're not going to beat that with brute force. You're going to have to beat that with intelligence, right? So now we have to get in there. We have to play that an intellectual game to balance things out. But I do worry about them. They are a concern. And then the one that's the highest of my concern, when it is a concern, are the ones that are violent. Because you can talk all you want. I can't stop anybody from talking. But once you take your words and you put them into violent action, It's like Biggie said, what you think all the guns is for? And I don't mean just holding on to guns. What you think all the professional training is for? What you think understanding true tactics is? What do you think really understanding what equipment is? What do you really think understanding what velocities are and things like that? I am not out here playing this subtle game to be like, oh, I'm just ready for whatever to run. No, I will tactically dismantle your ass. Like, what do you think that's for? Because when we get to that point, conversation is over with. We can't discuss. We can't sit down like gentlemen because you've allowed your words to turn into violence. And once you want to act violent, then that's when you see the true American in me come out, right? That's what America's talk about. Anything. Don't put your hands on me. Don't try to deprive me of my life or liberty. Once you do that, I'm going to respond to you. And if I respond to you, it's not going to be in kind. Whether I lose or not, you're going to know you were in a fight, right? So those are that's how I look at that tier of things. And if a Klansman, if somebody wanted to set it up on a Bright Enough podcast and a Klansman, because I've seen people have these conversations. I've just never had the privilege because one time I tried, the guy kind of jogged away. I would have a conversation with him. I'm still going to feel sorry for him and think he's an idiot because I just don't get that. I just don't get how you look at people and think ill of them. Even coming from where I come from, we had some pretty slick shit being said about white people, right? And I've always kind of been kind of a critical thinker, my own thinker, kind of kept me out of trouble to a degree. And, I wound up filling out my own paperwork to get into a DSEG program. My mama has known this now, so I ain't got to worry about her still whooping me because I'm a little bit bigger now, mama. You just can't be whooping on me. All right. But I forged all her signatures to get into a desegregation program because I was tired of the violence. Right. And I wanted to go to a different program. But when I got into that different school, if I would have let all of the things that I heard, now I'm not saying all of it was necessarily incorrect because these were people sharing their experiences, right? But I couldn't walk into school and treat every white kid like they're the ones that did that. So I had to walk with a certain energy to say, I'm going to have to learn about everybody. But then balance it out with saying you are also not going to persuade me to forget what I know or stand up for my people, right? So it's a balance that occurred there. And then I ran into the one idiot racist in high school, but he wouldn't fight me. He's still a bitch. Steve, you still a bitch to this day.
Explain what a desegregation program is.
So the desegregation program was if you were from a inner city and there were schools around you, right? So let's say the city's here, then there are schools around the suburbs.
Just busing?
Huh?
Just
yeah, busing. Yeah, so you could.
We talked about that earlier today.
The deseg. So you could bust the better schools. And that's literally what I did. Now, I wish I would have known what I knew I wish I wouldn't have known at the time what I know now. If I would have known that I was taking who I was as an asset to that school and understanding that they're going to then reward that school for me, right? Good grades. If you're doing all the right things, then the school can apply for more funding to keep this going. Whereas if I would have left that in the city school, then the city school could have used me as the same asset, right? To probably get more funding there, to potentially build better schools and things like that. But I didn't know what I didn't know, man. At the time, what got me to lead a city school was and it was Gateway Technology. It was supposed to be a magnet school. It was O'Fallon Tech. They changed it to Gateway Tech, and it was supposed to be a magnet school that brought the best of the best. At the time, look, I was a kid. I was in the streets, but I was also very smart, and I wanted to do something with my brain. I wanted to be smart. I didn't even know I just knew I was smart. And so when they started this school up, I'm like, hell yeah, that's where all the smart kids are going? Yeah, I'm going to go here and learn some technology shit. And I got there, and I was there for 2 years, and man, I came out in that hallway sometime toward the end of the year, that second year, and I see these cheap ass windbreakers. They're blue, and they got yellow lettering on the back of them. It says FBI. And it was actually the first time I at least seen that in movies. It's the first time I actually seen the jacket that said ATF too. I'm like, I ain't know who that was. I know who they are now, but I did not know who they were then. And I'm like, huh? And there was a bunch of them. And I'm a kid. I'm a sophomore. And I'm like, what is going on? They took 30 guns off of one kid in school. And we didn't ever have a problem with school shootings. He was selling them. And all the crime was happening back in the neighborhoods that people came from. None of the crime happened at the school, but he was selling them. And you know how it is. You figure out something one day, if all the rumors go around. Well, the next week, he was able to get the guns into the school because he was bribing the security, because we have security and metal detectors. But he was bribing the security guards. Well, then the guns were being sent to this kid to sell them in school from the OGs back on the block, right? So it was this whole chain of things happening. And so now I'm just like, man, I got to go. I got to go because I'm never going to escape it. I'm already living in it. Now it's following me to school. I got to go. I got to go. So that's why I went through the desegregation program to go out there and did. And look, it's something else that I'll tell people, man. If you don't, school is education is very, very important. I'm not a everybody has to go to college type of guy. Not my thing. But education, however you need to get it, is very, very important. Trade, whatever you get. Because hell, the streets almost got me. And this is something I don't think I've ever said on a podcast that any two-way people listen to. The streets almost got me. The streets had me so bad that after that year, even though I signed up to go through the DSEG program, that man, I was in the streets so bad that the school actually came to me because the curriculum out there was harder. It was more challenging. But they actually came to me and said, you're going to have to drop out. Right. So I missed my entire last half year of my junior year of school because I was in the streets. I just was. Mama we had to pay bills, and I'll leave it at that. And I was doing what I had to do. While still, mind you, working at White Castle. I was still working a job, because I was smart enough then to understand, like, you can't handle money without a job. So got to have some track record there, So I worked, whether it was inside of a restaurant or on a block. I did it all day. So I had to drop out of school, and it was that summer that I had to watch one of my friends, and it still breaks my heart to this day. I watched him start popping a dope. Popping some dope and kind of start draining the life from him. And that was my awakening to say I need to go back. So I ran my ass back to school. And not only did I graduate with the same class that I was due to graduate with, so I walked the stage with those same people. I actually walked with, states you get credits. I studied so hard and crashed those books so hard, I walked out of high school with 8 additional credits. Damn near the whole year out, half year I lost, I doubled up on it and was able to walk out. Yeah, that was kind of where that life took me. And I was trying to get to that school to think it'll be an escape. But the hood still had me, and I still was a victim of it for a minute until I broke free. And then I will give it. One thing I will say, and it's not saying all schools are perfect, but I'm going to say this, man. I had a principal named Dr. Manna, and I don't even know if he's still alive. But that dude, white as white, white as he could be. But when I tell you that he was a big reason why I made it, and that's what I mean by, man, we got to take individuals for individuals, because it took a hell of a lot for him to single me out in that school and be like, you have to make it. He cried when I dropped out. He literally shed tears. And then when I came back the next year and I walked across that stage, he grabbed me, stopped the line, and cried again, right? Because he was proud of me. So I will say this to Dr. Mann and the other people at Melville Senior High School in South County, St. Louis. Like, they looked out for me. White or not, they got me through that hard time. So I do appreciate the DSEG program for that. I just wish I understood all the behind-the-scenes stuff that goes in with it. But maybe even as a kid, it would have been too much for me to really comprehend.
So what happened the next day?
Next day what?
After you graduated?
After I graduated, I remember going out, and my boy was bumping Wu-Tang all night. And we went out. And I graduated, and I was like, shit, what's next? So I wound up working odd end jobs. I knew I wanted to go to college, but like kids say, I'm going to take that year off. I'm going to take this little break. I knew I wanted to go to college, but it was still a little rough for me. Still a little rough. Home life was a little rough, a little distable, and I had to fend for myself. I mean, it is what it is. And so I worked odd end jobs. I delivered pizza. I want to do anything but go back to the streets. I wasn't going to do that. I delivered pizza, and then I get a phone call from a family member that's like, hey, there's this opportunity if you want to move down to Oklahoma, outside Oklahoma City, a small town called Prague, Oklahoma. There's an opportunity for you here, and I'll pay for you to go to college. Just have to find a local school around here, but I'll pay for a full ride if you come down here and help me out with this project I got going on. I said, all right, bet. So I left. I was working at a gas station. I left the gas station job, shot down to Oklahoma. That wound up being a big mess. Was not what I envisioned it being at all. I went to a gas station. I had a 1979 Thunderbird. I went to a gas station early in the morning because, dude kind of played me. I went to a gas station early in the morning. I got all the parts from AutoZone, and I tuned up this 79 T-Bird right up under the lights at this gas station. I tuned it up, hightailed it back up to St. Louis. I got here, then I went to Job Corps. And Job Corps is where I picked up. I had already graduated high school, so when I walked in there, because a lot of people go there to get their GEDs, and so I walked in the Job Corps, already one of the smartest people there, and I was a natural leader because I've been preaching on the streets, trying to get people to do things for a long time. So I walked in the Job Corps, and the moment I got in there, they're like, "Oh, we're gonna make you a dorm leader." So now I walk in, and I'm in charge of 50 other kids, right? I'm like, all right. So I go in there, and then I start learning this. My family is known for cement. Like my granddad was one of the first millionaires, black millionaires in the state of Missouri from concrete. Like, so I like to tell people, like, concrete runs through my blood. So I went there and I was like, well, if I'm going to be here, I'm going to be a cement mason. Cool. So I went straight to trade because I already had a high school diploma, straight to trade school on campus. And I was there for about a year and a half. They pay you to go there. She was great. You don't pay me to go to school? It was awesome. So paid me, and it was a whole bunch of cute girls there. Wife, I love you. A lot of cute girls. So you got me on this campus with a bunch of cute girls from all over the country. You paying me to be here. I don't have to go to high school because I already did that. I'm like, man, I'm a leader. Like, this is a good position. So I stayed there for a little while, left there, went and became, I did some journeyman work for concrete, right? So went out there, worked for some large companies, conglomerates. And then I wound up bouncing around a little bit, odd end jobs. Concrete went for me after the third heat stroke, I was done. I had 3 of them. And after the third heat stroke, I was done. Because if you're a laborer, like, the dudes don't give you water breaks. It was horrible. You know, they work you to the bone. I was like, all right, I ain't gonna complain, but I'm gonna make a move. So I went and started installing cable for a while. And I was installing cable, actually making more money, oddly enough. Installed cable for a while, and next thing you know, I was riding down the street one day and I looked over and I saw St. Louis City Police Department. It's like, I'm going in there. I pulled over in a cable truck, walked in front of the PD, and walked to the receptionist. Sergeant happened to be standing there. I was like, yeah, I'm gonna be a cop, is what I said to him, just like that. I said, I want to be a cop. How do we make this happen? And my reason for that was because I wanted to be able to go back and do what I wish the cops would have done. We did not have good police at all. Not even a little bit. I'm not going to pretend like we did. We didn't. They were pretty horrible. I think in that entire time that I lived over there, I met 2 cops that I can actually say were good people. Even though they still arrested folk, they were good people. They were doing their job. like, truly, I'm a nice guy, but you fucked up. I'm going to lock you up, right? But other than that, no, they weren't nice at all. Hell, I robbed the guy that wound up being our chief of police. I watched him rob the drug dealers across the street from me like every other week. And he wound up being our chief of police, right?
Were most of the cops police in your area when you were young? Were they white cops or black cops?
We had a pretty good mixture. I'm going to say about, for what it was, I'm going to say 70-30 white to black. So you did have a decent amount of black cops. And when I pulled over to that place and I was like, all right, I'm going to start working here. That's what's going to happen. I got to look comfortable. When I was doing concrete, I was a little bit healthier. Then all of a sudden you got me doing cable and I got to look comfortable. I didn't know what these things called carbs were, and I didn't know how to manage them properly. And then you can still see on the side of my neck here, I had a big problem with limps and thyroids and stuff like that, and I never processed stuff the same. So I was a little chunky, chunk. I walked in there, and so that's why he laughed. He's like, he said, but I like your attitude, kid. He pulled me to the side right then and there and talked to me. He was like, hey, I wouldn't mind maybe talking to you about doing police work. But right now, we got to get your health under control. There are other things that you can do. Do you want to be in law enforcement? I said, yes. He was like, well, you can take one of these positions here that are like away from anything law enforcement, right? You're just part of the system. It's like filing papers and all that. He said, or I can put you in our prisoner processing division. And he was the sergeant over that. He was like, you're going to do firearms training. You're going to deal with detainees. You're going to do some cool stuff. You want to do all the stuff that cops do on the street, but you'll do some pretty cool stuff. And then if you ever decide to switch over to the street, it's very easy. So just come do that. You'll be able to work secondary jobs. You'll get paid good money. I'm like, okay. So at the time I'm making, I don't know, $11 an hour at the cable company, where versus I can make 15. If I took that job, I can make $15 to $25 an hour standing in an auto parts store doing security. So yeah, I'm going to take this job. Right. And I did. And 2 weeks later, which is unheard of for any government agency, like 2 weeks after you walk in cold turkey, you're working. But I was, like, had me in there. And then once I got to the city PD, I took advantage of all the training. I stayed there for 10 years, right about 10 years in the processing division. Yeah, right about 10 years. Simultaneously, I started doing security, learning more about EP work. So I did some EP stuff. Then I got recruited over to one of our local universities that was going to become a PD. And they abandoned the idea, but I was brought over there to help out stand up the jail facility. So like ICALIA standards, which you see internationally accredited on the side of police cars, I was brought over to help out with that because when it comes to detainment and arrest procedures, like that was my jam. That's what I did. So how to structure the facility, how to work with other agencies. So if I got to transfer somebody to another department, transport laws, how much you got to feed people, the size cell they got to be in, like. I understood all this stuff like the back of my hand. So they brought me over there to help with that. I was there for 2 years. They abandoned the idea. And I'm like, I'm not staying here to be a high-paid security guard dealing with drunk college girls at 2 o'clock in the morning. I'm just not. But then that was still a learning experience because it was 25,000 people at the time that actually stayed on campus. But it's in St. Louis, which is one of the worst cities in the country when it comes to violence. Beautiful city. I love my home, but it's got a violence problem. And that university is prestigious. So people come from what the hell happened, Wisconsin and all these small towns to go there, but it's smack dab in our city. 25,000 people stay there, a traffic of 115,000 a day. So also was training those guys to kind of deal with that because a lot of these guys had never seen that kind of traffic. So they brought over other guys that had law enforcement experience, things like that, to try to stand this idea up. So they abandoned the idea. Me and a few other people left. I went into corporate America to start taking my education serious. I wound up getting an undergrad degree in biz as admin and then got my graduate degree in procurement and acquisition. And wound up going through the process of corporate America for a while. I worked for some pretty large entities, Fortune 500 spots. And then I wound up doing some contracting work with the DOD and did that for 5 years through a defense contractor and had to step away from some reasons for some not even current day reasons that are going on, but for some other reasons before this stuff even happened. And then decided that, I want to actually take time for me at this point after being I think I was in corporate America for 14 years or something like that. And I just decided that I wanted to take some time off for me, do some things to better me, maybe do some things to better my fellow American people around me, get some kids out on some land, get their hands dirty, kind of get away from that corporate machine, man, because if anybody ever wants to know the most evil structure on the planet Earth, where it doesn't care about your mental health, it doesn't care about your physical health, it cares nothing about the fact that you are a usable tool, it is corporate America. Absolutely the most evil entity that exists on this planet. It's quite worse than politics. It's corporate America all day.
So what pays your bills now? What do you do?
Now I am focusing on standing up without saying too much. Let's just say because of some of the things that corporate America didn't address properly, they might be helping me out. I'll leave it at that. And then there are the small things I do. What I'm hoping to do is just keep No Other Choice going and eventually be able to get off of that altogether, get myself together, get my mind right, and then just focus on totally doing community outreach and firearms training and letting that be the thing. And then obviously we had a store, nootherchoice.com, where you can get all the gizmos and gadgets for your guns and things like that. So hopefully get the more American people more riled up into helping somebody that really advocates for their gun rights instead of selling out to these companies that don't. Really advocates for their gun rights and help out that way. But right now, man, to be honest with you, outside of the sporadic training that I'm able to do, it was time to take a break. I've been grinding, and I'm a big fan of, especially, and I hate to sound like that, but it is what it is. I'm a fan of a man grinding. You get your ass up, you get to work, you make it happen, period. I've been working since I was 15. I got a work permit when I was 15, working an official job. And I'm in my 40s now, and I've never stopped. I've always worked 3 jobs and was going to school at the same time. A lot of shit can happen. I need to sit down for a second, because you can run a machine into the ground, but eventually, if it breaks, it breaks.
What's that look like, you sitting down? What's that?
Hard. Very, very challenging. Very, very hard. It's still a lot of reading, studying, because I can't sit still. Don't ask me to do that. To be honest with you, man, if we're just talking man to man, I sat down on my couch about a month ago, and I said, it was early morning. I got up, got the kids off to school. Wife was out of town. I got the kids off to school, and I was like, oh, there's this show on. And I clicked it, and I watched an episode. It was called The Lioness. It was a pretty good show, actually. I clicked it, and I watched an episode. And then I got a blanket, and I watched 2. And then I got kind of snuggled, and I watched 3. and got up just to get the kids back from school, cook dinner for them, and then I watched the rest of it. I felt like a piece of shit.
Mm-hmm.
I felt horrible.
Yeah, I fall asleep if I watch anything.
Do you?
Yeah.
I only do that at night.
Yeah, I could sleep a whole you turn the TV on, I'm asleep. Like if I sit on them couches upstairs, it sucks the life out of me.
Yeah. It's hard for me, but I felt like a piece of shit, but at the same time I realized that, you got to take a break. And it gets into mental health. I tell guys all the time, man, and girls the same, that you got to know, it's a difference between bitching and taking advantage of it because you can just bitch and take advantage of it. Oh, I'm having a bad day, so the world sucks. And it's another thing to say, no, I'm not okay. Like, I'm not feeling all right. And you have to know when to say that. It's like the gun game was shocked when I came into this industry all them years ago, and I stood up and said, the first time I picked up a gun, like in control of it, I tried to kill myself. And that's the truth. The second time I got my hands on a gun alone, I tried to kill myself. I just really sucked at operating guns. First time I couldn't figure out how to get it loaded, and the second time was a lever action, and I couldn't figure out how to truly get the lever cocked and take the safety off. So, and that was at 13 and 15 years old. And so I've always been aware of the importance of mental health, but I just grind. And then when you add on the responsibility of a family, and you're looking at them and you want to take care of them and you want to make sure they have all that they have, you go harder, you push harder. And then you start looking at things that you want to achieve. You push harder, right? Then you start looking at, okay, the economy is changing. You keep track of these things. You're like, I got to be ready for this shift. You push harder, right? And you got individual dreams and goals. And then, Lord forbid, if there are other people around you that depend on you, you push harder for them. And in the end, you wind up suffering to a degree if you don't pay attention to it. And so now that's kind of where I'm at, is making sure that I'm okay, making sure that my mind is okay, because this is something that, as the cards were dealt, I'm not going to complain about it. As the cards were dealt, it was a card that was dealt to me. I've been, I tell people all the time, we talk about our boys and girls that serve going through PTSD. They might go somewhere for four years, see some horrific stuff, and come back and need professional help. Well, imagine growing up in it. Imagine seeing it every day. No, it's nothing, man. I grew up, literally from here where we're at now to your shop door was our city's largest cemetery. And I stayed right here. So every day I came outside, all I saw was death. On my corner was a tombstone retailer. That was the corner. Across the street was the cemetery. And I stayed in the worst hood in one of the worst cities in the country. So you see all that, I come up where you got at 10 years old, your friend's mom is, trying to get you to give her your lunch money, and she'd be willing to, give a little boy oral sex for your lunch money. I'm looking at the dudes across the street drop bodies, one every other week, dropping bodies. I know what it's like to walk down an alley and see crackheads sprawled out in your alley. I know what it's like to see dead bodies just walking home from school. Like, this shit ain't no joke, but it's not normal. It's not natural. It's not something that a kid should have to see, especially back then. You're talking 30 some odd years ago. We didn't talk about mental health. We didn't understand it. And to be totally honest with you, where I come from, we really avoided mental health because it was always called a white man's disease, because we had all the dudes on Wall Street jumping out of windows and shit, right? So it was that. So it was like if you owned that, you were weak. And so, no, there was nobody there to help me with that. So that shit just fostered and fostered and fostered. It even goes back to me being violent. Like I tell people all the time, I see a lot of tough guys, and they talk tough, and maybe they did some tough stuff. And normally my attitude is so cavalier about that, because I'm like, man, imagine being born with, in that environment and then actually being okay with violence. You ain't tough, dude. You know what I'm saying? I wasn't tough. I was a survivalist, which is why I appreciate peace so much now. That's why I try to avoid conflict at all costs, because I appreciate peace, because I never had it, right? Never had it. First time I went out to that suburban school I was telling you about, and I'm sitting out there and we're in the quad having a chicken sandwich. I'm like, this is awesome. This is great. This is kind of cool. Only thing y'all worried about is if they got extra mayo today. Oh, okay. That's nice. Right? Because I grew up in it. So for me, it's about taking a break now to make sure I don't lose all that, because to be honest with you, man, I'm really I'm thankful to God every single day for the life that I have. And so right now I had to sit my butt down to make sure I can have the life that I know I deserve 15 years from now. Because if I don't take this small break to get me right, I'm not going to be any good for my kids, man. I'm looking at a son, that had a dad. I ain't have a father. My son actually does have a dad, and, he's going off to the Air Force in 6 months. He wants to graduate high school. He wants to go be an airman. And you know what? I'm thankful for being mentally healthy at this point and knowing that I've taken a break, because in that I was able to hit friends up. Because I am in this industry and I'm able to hit friends up, and all of a sudden I got him meetings with lieutenant colonels, from the Air Force, so they can talk to him about it, and I'm able to call all my friends that have been in different branches and, blah, blah, blah. I even had him on the phone with special forces guys that can tell them, hey, if you ever think about this is where you're going, because I told him he's too damn big to be a pilot or to be in any special forces though. So he is going to go be a engineer in the Air Force. My son's he's right now, I'm pretty sure he's just touching 6'7". It's 260 size 20 shoe. Like, everybody gonna see you coming. You can't be special nothing. You're a big boy. And then I got a brain for a daughter, beautiful wife, and then a brain for a daughter. My daughter's right now is accelerating through school. She will graduate from high school 30 days after her 15th birthday. Right. So
wow. Yeah.
So I'm blessed. Like, I'm so blessed, man. And so I'm just trying to make sure I'm gonna be taking care of my mental, and I advise everybody to do so. I'm taking care of my mental. And so that means sit down. It means feel like a piece of shit. It means feel like you're not doing as much as you should do. It's a lot of things that bother me, irk me, but at the end of the day, I know it's for the best. And then eventually I'll get up off my ass and make it happen. But I know it's going to be for the best, because I want to see them thrive, live beautiful lives, and I want to see it. No point in me getting them there and I'm not there to witness it. Right. So I want to get them to the promised land.
So what are you doing in town now?
Now I'm down here with the USCCA, and I'm doing some training over at Tactical Response, and we got some guys that are going to become pistol instructors. So I'm here to help them through that process and get them certified, so they can go out there and educate Americans about how to be better defenders of their home fronts. So tell me what USCCA does. So USCCA, United States Concealed Carry Association, provides, and I have to be careful with the lawyer talk, but they provide self-defense liability coverage if you're involved in a self-defense situation. That's what they're known for. And then on top of that, they also provide general education around anything self-defense. So if you are involved, you are a USCCA member, and you're coming out of your house and bad guy, knife, he's going to stab. And you have to do what you need to do to defend yourself. It could be hitting them with a pole. It could be using a firearm. The USCCA is going to be there for you to get you out if they need to get you out and get you back home, and then start standing up and helping you with the court proceedings if they happen after that. Mm-hmm. They're going to be there to help you out with that stuff. And then on top of that, while you're a member of the USCCA, you're going to have an opportunity to get access to information and education that's about you being better. So if you need to understand, hey, why is it important to carry a flashlight on you? Why is it important to get medical training? What are the newest training methodologies out there to help you get better? And then we're going to introduce you to a network of trainers that can help you get better at all those things. So even before you have to get to, I may or may not have to use something in self-defense, let's just help you be better educated and more well-rounded and truly understand like what you're doing. So we can even help you avoid a situation altogether. So that's what they do. I am a counselor for the U.S. It means I can certify instructors. So I'm a counselor for them, and they're one of the few organizations that I can say that actually truly put a big emphasis on education. So the self-defense side covers what they do. I can say I've even had one of my students, unfortunately, have to utilize it, and it worked out well after seeing that particular example. And the education is where I really come in at, though, because the more educated people are, I think the more we can keep them out of those situations. So I'm a big fan of that. So they are a fantastic organization. They exist literally to help the American people stay out of jail, and keep them educated about how to defend themselves against bad situations. So that's who the USCCA is. I would highly recommend everybody check them out. You can even go to my social, especially on my Instagram, and it's right there in my link tree. You can click it. You can read all about it. And look, man, I'm not here to sell anybody anything. I'm just saying, I tell people this in my classes. We call upon people in this industry for their specialties, right? If you want to know what it's like to rappel out of a Black Hawk, it's a guy you call for that. If you want to know what it's like to put a shape charge on a door, there's a guy you call for that. The one thing that always gets missed is guys that are here that did what I did. I put people in cages. So it's cool to teach you how to defend, but to do that defense with no intelligence gets you in prison. So you can go to Murder, Death, Kill Training School LLC, and while that all might be fine and dandy, they aren't seeing what happens when the state law doesn't cooperate. They're not seeing what happens when you say this thing or when you do this and then consider this. So they're just teaching you a thing and they're not giving you balance to it. They're not seeing what happens and behind the scenes. I did. So I'm big on people being educated so we can keep good people out of those situations, because so many people teach all these tough skills, but they don't tell you what it's like when that dad was doing what he thought was the right thing, because self-defense is not common sense and people think it is. When that dad thought he was doing the right thing, and the next thing you know, you're at home in your bed asleep, maybe watching it on YouTube. I'm the dude that had to take this grown man out of his clothes and give him a paper gown because he's trying to kill himself, while his wife, is a couple of 100 yards away, banging on some bulletproof glass, holding her children at 2:00 in the morning, not knowing if daddy's ever coming home, with the babies crying. Like, see, they don't see that. I had to see that every day. So I'm a big fan of trying to keep Americans out of trouble, and getting them a lot of information and education. This is just not simply about, hey, I'm going to run to a door, kick a door down, clear my house, all the things. I mean, we can do all the things, man. We can do all the things all the time. I'm with all the gizmos, gadgets, technology. My screens are filled with data and information and research. Keeping up on the training spectrum is awesome. So I love the USCCA for that, but I also love them more because it's about giving education to keep people out of those situations, because it is not as sexy as people want to think it is. It's not. Until you're dealing with somebody like me that's been having a bad day, and I'm gonna stick you in this, 4x4 thing while you're being processed in, and you got all these questions, and nobody's gonna give you an answer until you see a pretrial officer and he's like, yeah, that's gonna be $250,000 cash only for you to go home. How many Americans you think got $250,000 sitting in the bank right now? All right, to go home to your family. So it's a good thing to have the USCCA, but the education piece will also keep you from hopefully potentially having to even use their services.
I know James was always promoted, USCCA. He was always in favor. I know a lot of the guys, some of the guys said he'd brought them through here. Mm-hmm. Some of those dudes had been through here. We met a few of them.
That's good. That's good. And I know I told one promise I made to Yeager. One promise I made to him is that I would do whatever I could do to help the kids out. Which is why I'm here. It's like, I'm going to do whatever I can to help them out. And so when you talk about any business scaling, with the amount of programs that they have, they're just going to be able to complement the tactical response alumni and all the people. They're just going to be able to complement them. And now I know James had his relationship, and I want to get these guys too, where they can actually now, as being certified, can take full advantage of those relationships and spread that throughout the network. So now we have another benefit to all the alumni where they're protected. They got somebody that's got their back financially, right? While giving them education, even if that education is funneled through tactical response. Great, right? Education we already give. We got a few extra nuggets for you. And then we're going to make sure we get you guys what you need to make sure that if something does happen, we can get you back home and you don't have to be stuck in a cell all night dealing with, guys like Kevin.
Right on. So where can people find you at?
You can find me on any social media platform, The Real NOC. NOC stands for No Other Choice. The Real NOC. I will be honest, I am most active on Instagram. I will be active on all the social media platforms. I'm on Facebook, I'm on YouTube, I'm on Instagram, even on Twitter or X, whatever it's called now. I'm on all those platforms. I'm more active on Instagram, but starting January 2024, I got a relaunch, a rebranding of everything will be new, fresh, and popping. So you'll see me active on all those platforms, especially the YouTube platform. You'll see me over there a lot. And then you can always go to my website, nootherchoice.com. We got accessories over there for all your boom boom sticks, your pew pew pangs, along with firearms training. I do travel the country and train. Training is my passion. If anybody wants to get out there and learn more about your gadget and your wadget, and you want to learn how to, use it to defend your family, I'm your man. Check out nootherchoice.com. Hopefully I can help you out.
I was on one of your lives the other day. I saw you talking about you were a lady in a gas station or something. You had seen somebody, something happen, and you're like, no, that's not my problem. I'm going home. It's more important that not to get involved in something that I'm not clear on.
Yeah.
and you have kids that you're responsible for, and the take on that. I was on there for a few minutes while you were talking about that. Right after lunch, I think I was in the kitchen when I was watching that. I do see your lives on there. Sometimes usually I'm doing the dishes usually when I'm listening to some of that, so my hands are wet, but I do see you on there, man.
I appreciate you tuning in, brother.
And
Same thing.
And then you got some cool shirts and stuff, so people can check those out.
Today I am wearing the "Don't Make Me Act Uncivil About My Civil Rights" shirt. Okay, I think low key. I'm gonna be honest. I think low key I got some of the hardest swag out, but I don't do well with necessarily always promoting it, because I get in front of people and I'm just talking to them, and I have this saying: there are social media influencers, and then there are influencers that happen to be on social media. I come from the streets doing this for real, actually talking and giving a damn about people. So sometimes I forget about the capitalist part. I'm gonna get better. But, the stuff that I do put out, when I do put it out, like it stands. Don't make me act uncivil about my civil rights. One of the more popular ones is violence is the problem, accuracy is the solution. That's another one we have over there at the store. And then we have one that says my ancestors paid the price, I'm just a receipt. So, we got the conversations out there, man. Got some swag to compliment it. Sometimes it takes a little bit of cojones to wear a shirt like this out in public. But I mean it. And here's the thing, too. In case anybody sees this, don't think just because I'm wearing it, like this shirt in particular, don't make me act uncivil about my civil rights. I don't know if you know this, but I'm going to tell you. If you're white, you have civil rights, too. So maybe you can wear the shirt.
And where do they get them at?
NoOtherChoice.com. Click the apparel tab. You'll see all the shirts there. They come in shirts, they come in hoodies, and all the gizmos and gadgets. So you can check it out at NoOtherChoice.com.
All right, man. Thanks for sitting down, buddy.
Oh, man, I appreciate you, brother.
We'll see you again shortly.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Thanks, man.
Thank you.